Look at me, I'm a fancy lady in a scarf. I love this project, it was so much fun to make, and I'm going to show you how you can dye fabric, turn it into a scarf, stamp on it, and paint it, and have truly a one-of-a-kind piece of artwork just from some simple, inexpensive muslin fabric. The stamps we're going to use on this project are from our sponsor, artneco.com. Make sure you visit them and mention the Frugal Crafter to save 10% on your order or get free shipping, whichever is greater. And I'll be giving away the stamps I used on my website, thefrugalcrafter.wordpress.com, so make sure you head over there after this video and sign up for your chance to win. Now let's go to the table and I'll show you how it's done. Today we are going to do some fabric dyeing, and I've been looking forward to this project for months and I hadn't had a chance to do it, and I decided today is the day. It's a beautiful sunny day outside. It'll be perfect for drying fabric, and I thought that I would use some of these Dr. P.H. Martin Radiance watercolors to do my fabric dyeing, which kind of sounds crazy because you're probably thinking, why would you use watercolors? You're going to wash away. But the Radiance from Dr. P.H. Martin's actually will work as a color fast dye as long as you use a mordant on it. And a mordant is usually a type of salt that will fix the colors into your fabric. So you could use, I'm using soda ash. It's also called washing soda, I believe, and I have some here in a bowl with really hot water. You could also use salt or vinegar or alum, whatever is convenient for you. I do quite a bit of tie-dyeing with kids' projects and stuff, so I always have little packets of soda ash, because sometimes you have a bunch of different bottles and each bottle comes with a packet, and you just end up with more than you can use, which is fine. So you don't need too much. I've got probably about 2 cups of water and probably a tablespoon of soda ash in here, and it's probably cheaper if you just buy a big thing of soda ash, but it's not as common in the United States as it is in the UK, I think. And then I think, since I kind of missed the boat on summer apparel, I bought enough fabric to do like a bathing suit wrap, like a sarong, but I kind of missed the boat on that, so I thought I would do maybe some like oranges and greens. I'm going to use olive green, I think. And there's another product called Hydrus, which is the other liquid watercolor Dr. Martin's offers, and I would not use that for this project because those are pigments, not dyes. They're not going to be color fast. Even though they're light fast in your artwork, they're not going to be color fast on your fabric. They'll wash out. So make sure you get the Radiance if you're looking for the Dr. Martin product. And I do have to thank them because they sent me these sets for free. They were very generous. I asked for a couple of the Hydrus to do a review on, and they were very generous with what they sent over, so I thank you for that. I'm gonna use a golden brown. I'm basically picking color friends, which are, you know, colors that would be close to each other on the color wheel, so I don't end up with any mud. And I am doing earth tone, so it's going to be a little muddy, but I don't want icky colors. Okay, and I'll do a little April green. So I have quite a few little colors here. You want to shake these well. There's a couple different Radiance paints. There's the Radiant, and then there's Spectralite, and the Spectralite are super duper transparent, and they're meant for like overhead transparencies or photo tinting. These Radiants, they actually have some pigments or dyes in them that need to be shaken up. So I'm going to pause it and shake these up, and then we'll come back and continue on. There, this is the only one that was tough to shake up. The other one shook up really easily. But as you can see, it got all shooken up except for just a tiny little bit there, which is not a big deal. Oh, I wanted to mention too, the stamps I'll be using later, I'll be giving away on my website, so make sure you visit my blog, thefrugalcrafter.wordpress.com, for your chance to win. So I think what we'll begin with, I've got kind of this long rectangle. I've got, which I don't really know what I'd do for. I got this scarf type shape, so I think we could do either that, or I did like a kind of a square that I thought I would do as a bandana, but let's do this scarf because I think that would be kind of fun. So I want to submerge it in the hot water. Now I have already washed this fabric. This is just thin muslin fabric. It was about $3 a yard at my fabric store. And I am going to really submerge it. I want to make sure I've got that all covered. You probably want to put gloves on, because if you have any cuts in your fingers, you're going to feel it. So I'm going to do that right now too. Oh, I'm so prepared. I actually got gloves out. I usually totally forget until I'm actually knee deep in dye and my hands and everything are stained for a week. There we go. So there. Once you've gotten that completely saturated, wring out the excess. And you would do this before you're tie dyeing. It's a good idea because that keeps the it makes the colors fix. I think some dyes like Rit might have the mordant already in the powder form. I'm not a big fan of Rit dye. Anytime I've used it, it has not been very vibrant. So I'm going to move these two fabrics out of the way for right now. And I just put some shopping bags on my table just to protect it, and I chose white ones just so that it would be easier to see. No affiliation with Joann's or AC Moore. I have both bags on my table right now. Give them a second life, right? Okay, so we'll start off in this area here, and I'm going to start with my lightest color, and I'm actually going to go right from the dropper, because that's another thing that's nice about these little bottles, is that you've got like a little applicator, and you can really direct where you want to go. I'm just going to kind of do, oh, isn't that pretty? I think I'm just going to maybe do some kind of like streaky lines. It's going to blend out because this fabric is damp. And I don't want anything too deliberate here because I'm going to be doing some stamping on it later. So I want kind of a more softer look. Alright, and these are tiny bottles, so just keep in mind that that you might use quite a bit of it if you're doing something really large, and it could be expensive because these kits are not cheap. I think those kits are about, I think they're about $75 each. Oh, that's a pretty color. Now if you do get something a little too bright, you could spray it with water, or even take like a sponge and some of your soda ash and kind of dab over it. Oh, it's pretty, isn't it? Gosh, it looks a lot different than when you use tie-dye, I'm telling you that. This is definitely more concentrated. And then let's see what this orange looks like. It's fun just to watch the pigment go. Oh, just look at that fabric. It's so pretty. I don't know if I'm going to want to stamp on it, actually. Do a little over here. I don't know if it's picking up the texture of the bag or if it's just getting the wrinkles from the fabric because I just washed it or what, but it's very pretty. Let's see. Haven't used that brown yet or the lighter green. You can see kind of where the colors are mixing there. They are getting a little muddy. Yeah, I don't think I'll use too much of this brown. I think I'll just put a little bit in because I don't want to have mud. Now, this is wet fabric that you're seeing here as well. When it dries, it's going to be lighter. That's always the case with fabric. So, so if it's super, super pastel, you may be disappointed. Like if you're painting it really pastel, you may be disappointed in how it dries out. So I'm thinking this vibrant color is going to look really nice when it's all dried out. Okay, so what I'm going to do here now is, let's lift it up. You can see that it's soaking through to the back really well. If you want, you can gently kind of rub it and get those colors to meld a little bit. You can kind of work it with your fingers a little bit. We picked color friends. I mean that where the orange and the green go together, we will get brown, but for most part we're doing colors that are fairly close to each other in the color wheel, so we shouldn't end up with too many problems, I should say. So then what I'm going to do is just move the scarf down and keep working, and I'll continue until I've done the whole scarf. Then I'm going to take it outside and hang it to dry, and we'll be back when this is all dried. Okay, so I have let the fabric dry, and what a difference between wet and dry. You can see the fabric's lighter, but also you can see some of the undertones on some of the colors changed quite a bit. You can see like almost this magenta, and I think that color actually came from the brown. So it must have been one of the ingredients in the color, but it does give it a very interesting look, and I was surprised there was any white areas left. I thought that it was all kind of smushed together. So it does go to show you that you do have a little more control if you were to like paint a picture. Everything wouldn't just smush together even if it looked like it was smushing together. So what I thought would be pretty along one edge of the scarf would be to do some stamping, and what I'm going to do is use my archival ink, because this is a waterproof ink. You can also use VersaCraft. If you have any Fabrico, that was an older ink. I don't think they still make it, but that works really good. But a lot of the inks that you have will actually work for this. What you want to do is test it on a piece of washed fabric, just like you washed your fabric before you dyed it, and then heat set it with an iron or a heat gun, and then wash it again and see if that comes out. And that's just a great way to do a little test there. So I'm going to zoom in, and the stamps I'm using are from Art Deco, and I will be giving them away on my blog, so just make sure you hop on over to my blog. I'll try to make it so that this video goes live on YouTube at the same time it goes live on my blog. So I want to make sure my ink pad is well inked. You could also use any sort of fabric paint or even acrylic paint for this. And what I'm going to do is actually, you know what? I'm going to stamp my biggest leaf first, because it's easier to make a design when you've got your biggest one first. And I kind of just want this like kind of design of like a cascade of leaves. Now see, I got a really beautiful crisp impression there. So just make sure your stamp is well inked. Now this is something that would be a really useful technique if you do any art quilts or anything like that. As you could also stamp t-shirts or anything like that. It's really a really great technique. And the nice thing about using ink instead of paint, well, first of all, you probably have it, and secondly, you don't have to worry quite so much about cleaning your stamps right immediately like you do when you're doing paint. So that I'm doing this, I don't know what kind of leaf this is. I'm doing this one second though, just because it's a little bit bigger than my smallest one, and it's just a little easier to fit. We'll do another one up there. It's just a little easier to fit your design in like that if you work big to small. And like I said, I wanted a little cascade. You could do this on both ends or just one. I thought this end was a lot lighter, so I knew my stamping was really going to show up well here. Maybe do one more in here. Okay, so I'm going to go press this and make sure it's completely heat set, but I'm going to set it aside for now because I want to show you how we're going to prepare our coloring medium. So I'm going to use Inktense blocks. You can use Inktense pencils, whatever you have. Either Inktense product will work. And even though it's not, you don't have to use this, but just for a little extra peace of mind, I'm going to use Textile medium. So what I'm going to do is, and I don't need much because I'm just doing a small area, instead of just coloring them with the Inktense and using water to spread them around, I'm actually going to put I don't need much, just like a little, probably like a pea-sized drop of the Textile medium. And then what I'm going to do is actually take my spray bottle and I'm just going to give it a couple squirts of water, and then I'm going to mix it around with a brush. If you have a fabric brush, use that, but if not, just try to find a flat brush that has a little bit of stiffness to it. Fabric brushes have stiffer bristles to push that paint around, but we don't really have to push any real big paint. We just need to be able to liquefy our blocks. You can see it's still a very watery consistency, but instead of it being clear like water, it's got that hazy color to it. Okay, so then that's how you kind of know you've got a good mix there. And of course you can clean this with your stamp cleaner in a little bit. I'm actually, since I'm gonna iron this after, just to double set my my Inktense, I'm just gonna go ahead and heat this with a heat gun right now. I really think that's all I need to do. And now I'm just choosing a few colors that I think would look really nice and contrast a bit with our design here. I probably won't use all of these, but it's nice to have the options. Now the Inktense pencils will work just as well, so you don't have to have these if you've got the pencils. In fact, I think the pencils are probably a little bit more versatile than the blocks. So what I'm going to do is just kind of color this in. Now if you were doing, I was actually thinking about doing dragonflies on this, but then I decided that I wanted it to have more of like a fall theme. But like say you were doing dragonflies and you wanted them to have, or birds or something, and you wanted them to have like a pretty like swirly trail, you could totally sketch on that swirly trail. I want to keep this fairly within the lines, so I am coloring fairly loosely, but I'm just making sure that I don't go overboard as far as like going out of the lines. I'm going to put a little bit of this color on the other leaves as well, just to kind of help it be harmonized. The other thing I did to this off camera was I hemmed the edges, and I really had intended to do a rolled hem, but it's been so long since I've used my rolled hem presser foot that I couldn't remember how to use it properly, so I ended up just pressing it and hemming it with my regular presser foot. So I would recommend a rolled hem if you have a rolled hem presser foot and you know how to use it. And that's why you don't see many sewing tutorials on my channel. If they are, it's more of the project and less about the sewing. Do a little bit of that other green, that's kind of pretty. I'm not sure if those green ones will stand out very well against the background, but they don't have to. I just need to have some that that really do. Ooh, I really like this red. This is color, I could probably see the color number 500, I think. But you can really go by eye. Get what you like. The colors that I use to dye this, the Radiance watercolors, are very clear and saturated, and they're not very muddy, so I think that I'll be able to layer this medium on top of that with no problem. Just remember, whenever you're doing anything like this, using ink tints on fabric, make sure you pre-wash it. So, like if you get some canvas bags, you know, from the grocery store that you want to decorate or anything like that, just make sure that you've pre-washed them so that when you do need to wash them in the future, they're not going to come out. And something like a scarf, you're not going to have to wash that often, but still, you don't want it to fade away when you do. Oh, by the way, if you wanted to mix up a bunch of this and keep it in like a screw top container, that would be totally fine. That way you don't have to mix it up every time. And, you know, that said, it's not absolutely imperative that you do that. It's just a little extra bit of security. I like this red so much, I want a little bit on those other leaves too. I'll put a link to this set that I'm using, and don't forget to go over to my blog so you can win the stamps that I'm using. So this is going to activate my color. Now I could also pick up color from the sticks if I wanted to. And here you can see the heat setting from the heat gun was plenty. It doesn't, my ink is not moving at all. So if I wanted to grab a little color and add it from the stick, let me get some fresh water. I'm just going to squeeze this. I'll squeeze it right onto my mat just so I have a little puddle there. I could just pick up some fresh water and I can use that like a cake of color, just like I would a watercolor. And I could go in there with more color and really direct it. Just be careful on the wet areas of the fabric that you go a little bit within the lines, because it will bleed out a little bit. That's a pretty look. I like that. But that's a neat thing a lot of people don't know about the ink tints, is that you can use them on fabric for art quilts and whatnot, and there's some really cool stuff people do with that technique. I'm going to finish liquefying these and we'll be back when I'm almost done. I want to share a couple tips, a couple teachable moments from a couple little mistakes that I made. For one, when you move your scarf, if you're working on like a table and you're moving it around, as you paint, water and pigment will seep through and they'll get on your table, so keep a rag handy to wipe it. So whenever you move your fabric to readjust to get comfortable or whatever, wipe underneath it. Also, that little bit of water I squirted so I could have some water to pick up from my brush, I just set this in there, so I'm going to probably have a very interesting little water stain in there. And then I laid this on top of my Inktense block, which gave it another interesting little mark. I don't think that was there before. I think that happened. Well, maybe it was there before. I can't see. That's a great thing about using these colors, all these colors that are similar, that you won't be able to tell if it's a mistake or not, I think, when it's all done. Also, I want to show you that this is going to seep through to the back and actually be kind of pretty on the back, so that's nice. So it won't look just like a printed fabric. So I wanted to zoom in here to do this last leaf with you and just kind of show you kind of the rhythm that I've gotten into, and how to kind of do this the best, I think. Okay, so I've got the dry pigment on there that I colored. And then I'm going to pick up, and I really don't think it hurts to pick up this mixture and wipe it right on the block. I don't think it's going to make a film. And then I'm going to scrub a little bit here to pick up some pigment. This is kind of greenish gold color. Okay. That was a little out of focus, sorry about that. And then I find that if I kind of just gently tap it in there, it's enough to liquefy what I have, and it also helps me put down a really nice base of color, and I can really control how far it flows out instead of it spreading. Like, it spread a little bit too much on my first ones. I'll show you that in just a second again. So I just think a combination of coloring it directly on, then also picking it up with the brush is just the best solution that I've found to get a really crisp image. But you know what? If some bleeds out, that's not the end of the world, because this is handmade. It's supposed to look handmade, so that's what we want. And let me just pull it back here and I'll show you what I mean about like my first ones. I didn't quite have the feel of how much to put in, and I got it, you know, out a little bit. Now I do feel like, since it's not a pristinely colored image, I feel like I should do something purposefully to make it kind of like the tightness of the stamping meld with the looseness of the background. So what I'm going to do is actually use a stiff, you could use a toothbrush. I just have this is what I have handy, so that's what I'm going to use. And I'm going to wet this. I'm just going to like spritz some water off to the side and just really just kind of soak that brush with water. And then I am going to load it up and just kind of spatter. That's probably a little too wet. I think that'll be kind of pretty when it dries. And we do that with a little bit of yellow too. And I can always wipe these blocks off too. That's another thing. We'll see. We'll dry this and we'll see how it looks. Hopefully my my instincts were good. See, I can just wipe that with a rag and not a big deal. And then let me rinse this out and do a little green. Oh, I've got India ink in my rinse water. That's not good. I'm gonna do the darker green because it's gonna be lighter once I have it. Grab a little of the textile medium. Let's try flicking it with my finger. That works pretty good too. And then we don't have to worry if our coloring wasn't perfect. So I just like to do all these different techniques, and then you can decide what you want to do. Make sure you wash your brushes out really well. That textile medium is an acrylic, so you have to take the same care with your brushes as you would if you were acrylic painting. Even though it's watered down, your brush will be very stiff if you don't take those precautions. So you can press it, and I'll probably go upstairs and press it as well. But just for the sake of our video here, let's just dry it with a heat gun and see how it looks. I just remembered I had this pretty green gold luminescent paint called Lumiere by Jaquard. It's a citrine is the name of the color, and I thought, boy, that would be kind of pretty to do a little bit of accenting with this. So I'm just going to kind of touch the edges of some of these leaves just to give it a little burst of shine. I think that's kind of pretty on autumn fashion. Or I don't know, maybe I'm going to look like one of the Golden Girls when I'm wearing this. I think it's kind of pretty. Bring on the sequins. I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed to have a little bling in my life. And I'm just going to hit this with a little bit on the edge. I bet this would be really pretty spattered too. But I really don't like to thin down acrylics. The Inktense is a dye. It's an ink. It's going to be fine. But with acrylics, although it probably would still bond all right, you have to kind of worry about the makeup of your acrylic paints. If you thin it down too much, it will weaken the structure and it won't bond. But not so much with dyes. Dyes will absorb and stain. But I just wanted to get a little bit of this shimmer on there. And it also kind of crispen up some edges. And crispen, is that even a word? It'll crisp up some edges for you. So... oh, I like that. You don't have to do this. That's just an idea. I like it. Totally up to you. Another thing that you could do, if you realize you had some areas that were too white that you didn't like from your dyeing, you could always rub your Inktense block over there and spritz it and dye that in too. Just heat set it with your iron just to be safe. Now I'm going to go upstairs and press this, and then I'm going to come back downstairs and show you what it looks like on while I'm wearing it. Okay? See you in a minute. And here is my scarf all done. You can see the leaves that we stamped and colored, the fabric that we dyed. It's really light and comfortable. It's muslin, so very affordable to make. I got 2 yards for $6, and I probably use, let me just see, I can measure this on my thing here. I used probably 10 inches wide to do this, and then I hemmed each side, so it's about about 9 inches now. 9 inches, I'd say. Yep, 9 inches exactly. So, you know, definitely an affordable thing you could do. You could make a bunch of these up for Christmas presents, and you could alter the colors to fit the season. But I really like these autumn colors. I think they're really pretty, and you could do all sorts of different motifs and keep these colors, or, you know, even leave the stamping out if you wanted to. If you want to win the stamps I use today, go over to my blog, thefrugalcrafter.wordpress.com. I'll have a link in the video description. You can sign up to win. Also in the video description, there's a link to the stamps I used if you want to buy them, and visit our sponsor, artneco.com. They always offer my fans, my friends, you guys, 10% off your order just by mentioning the Frugal Crafter, or you get free shipping if your order's over $50, which is kind of cool too. You get the discount that's bigger, so when you do your order, whichever discount's going to save you more money is what they're going to give you, which I think is really cool. I really love how this turned out. It's a fun project, and I think that I will be making more of these in the future. If you give it a try, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.